Hello everyone. How are you coping with lockdown? Anyone wondering what the president's going to announce tonight? Are we going to continue in our police state for a few more weeks? Some really dark shit going on. People in KZN being forced into quarantine, not allowed to self-isolate any longer. Some quite disturbing comments from some of our politicians, making me worry a little bit about how easy it's going to be to move back to a state of normalcy at the end of this COVID-19 crisis we're dealing with. My name is Donald Mackay from XA International Trade Advisors. It's been a while since we've spoken. The idea was to try to do 2 of these a week, but the last week has just been absolutely chaotic. However, a lot has happened, and here's some updates. So let me get stuck into them. Firstly, with deferment accounts, this is not really a change, but there's been quite a strong lobby to allow a longer period for the settlement of amounts of money owed on deferment. So deferment is kind of a credit scheme that SARS runs for the import duties and VAT that you pay. And normally this is due within 7 days after the closure of your deferment period. Now, some companies have asked if they can extend that period. SARS has refused this request, and they've said, look, if you're importing goods under rebate item 41211, there is no need to get deferment because there's no duties or VAT, but for everything else, it's business as usual. So please be sure that you settle your deferment account balances on time. There's also been an increased demand for new registrations of companies who have never imported before, and SARS have created a slightly expedited process to get new companies registered. Normally, this process is quite onerous and you've got to do it manually. Now, SARS are allowing an online registration process done with email. We'll have to see how that goes. This expedited process that they've advertised very specifically excludes registration for excise duties. So this is a bit of an issue because, of course, there are also a lot of new registrations for rebate item 62108, which we've spoken about. There absolutely is still a process to get registered for this. If you need help with this, please be sure to watch our video on rebate item 62108 and get hold of us at covid19@xa.co.za, and we can definitely assist you. But then regarding this rebate item 62108, I am a little bit concerned. I've received far too many phone calls from people who have never dealt with excisable product beforehand and who are now receiving alcohol into their disinfectant factories with a very poor understanding of what the requirements are to deal with product like this. So I'm going to touch on a few things, and then we'll spend a little more time in the course of the next week, probably in the form of a webinar or a course on how to deal with these excisable products. But the nub of the problem is that if you do not deal with this properly, you have a potential liability of 213 Rand per litre of alcohol you buy. There's also some risk to the alcohol producer. In other words, the company that generally would have sold this to a beverage manufacturer, if they're not doing a proper handover. So we'll be putting out a blog post and a notice to anyone interested on when the course will be run and what the details are. We're still in conversation with SARS at the moment to try to understand how to get some of our important questions answered. As soon as we're ready, we'll notify you. You can register, and it'll be a short course, but I think really important if you are dealing with alcohol and this is not something you typically do in your business. There's also been some movement on the port congestion problem. So in the very beginning, when lockdown started, we were simply only allowing essential goods through the ports. And then that started creating some problems. For example, if you had a whole ship that was full of all sorts of goods, they did not want to dock if you only needed to take off 2 containers. Likewise, we had some very strange rules around inward bound flights where we were saying to the pilots, when you land here, you're going to be quarantined for 2 weeks. So some of these rules have been lifted and we've got a more reasonable position now. But as the flow of goods increases, of course, SARS's oversights of the ports also have to improve again. So a couple of important issues. On the import side of things, SARS are allowing goods to be taken out of the ports and into the warehouse. We still have a constraint on the transport of liquor, so this is still a problem. But for other goods, they need to get it out of the port and into the warehouse. Now, if you are then producing an essential good, you can move it from the warehouse and you can take it to the factory producing that essential good. But for everything else at the moment, it would just have to remain in the warehouse. And then pretty much the same kind of thinking on the exports of goods. But to get the goods in and out, SARS also have to do more inspections. Most of this is going to be focused on either documentary inspections or non-intrusive methods such as cargo scans or container scans. But there will still be the odd physical inspection where SARS will want to look inside the container. You can imagine there's a real concern that goods are coming in under rebate and it's in fact something else in the container. So absolutely SARS will still pick this up, but it will be far less than the normal amounts of interaction to, of course, safeguard the SARS inspectors. Rebate item 4.12.11, you really need to watch the videos we've put up about this, but just yet another update that came out yesterday. So ITAC are really struggling with the volume of applications coming in. There is a concern, and I think it may be a valid concern, that people are starting to stockpile. In other words, these goods are coming in, and when the rebate disappears, you'll be sitting with stock that immediately becomes more valuable. This is obviously not the intention. But also just the sheer number of applications have somewhat overwhelmed ITAC, and so it's taking longer and longer to get them issued. So to date, if you've imported the goods and you've paid the duty, there was no mechanism to get this duty back. ITAC would still prefer you to wait for your certificate, but if you have imported and paid the duty and your certificate is subsequently issued, they do talk about a refund process. Now, the problem we've got is SARS are not yet entirely clear on how this will be done. And as soon as we know more, we'll let you know about how that will work. But obviously, with ITAC taking longer and longer to get the permits issued, there's a real risk that more and more people will have to clear the goods and pay the duty. These goods cannot be stored in a bond store. So it means when it comes in, you're either going to end up paying the duty and claiming it back or waiting for your certificate. But I can see that there's going to be real problems in the buildup of uncleared stock if that is not resolved really quickly. We are currently working with some other experts in the field. We'd like to understand if you are currently waiting for your permit to be issued and you have waited for longer than 2 days, let us know. And absolutely, if you're past 5 days, really important to let us know. We'd like to get a sense of how big the backlog problem is at the moment. Again, if this is the case, please email us at covid19@xa.co.za. And then one final issue, a real bugbear of mine personally, is the adding of items to the critical supplies list. So the way this list was constructed is absolutely not clear. We don't have a report indicating how certain items got onto the list and certain items did not. On the face of it, ITAC have said, look, these are the essential goods, but the problem is that is a subjective measure. And I am quite concerned that we've got some important pharmaceutical ingredients and even medicaments, medicine bottles, and all sorts of other things which are not on this list. Now, I do understand ITAC's position where they are concerned that we destroy a manufacturing sector by arbitrarily putting items onto this list. But the fact that there wasn't a proper process to create the original list almost certainly means that there are gaps. And I would like to hear from you if you believe an item should be on the list. I'd ask you to only mail us if the item really is an essential item. But particularly around pharmaceutical items, medical goods, anything in that sphere, if you think it should be on, and it is not currently there, please send us an email at covid19@xa.co.za. Remember to subscribe and ring the bell so that you're updated every time we put a new video up. Stay safe. Bye-bye.